Okay, this is just an extra review for your test. There's a lot of questions on the test that are very similar to the questions I'm about to do. Okay, so on this first question, we have to solve for y. So that just means we're going to use MDR. So first we need to move the x because we want the y value. So we have to move away the x. So since this is a negative 5, I need to add 5x. And what you do to one side, you always have to do to the other side. So I'm going to add 5x over here also. Okay, so on the left side we can cross this off and just bring down the 8y. And then on the right side, since I can't add them up, I'm just going to write them out sideways. 5x plus 24. Okay, so we've done the move step. Next is divide. So since there's an 8 in front of the y, that's what we have to divide by. And you divide every single thing by your coefficient. Okay, and then the last step is reduce. So the 8's would cross off and we have y equals. Now 5 over 8, you can't reduce that. So since you can't reduce it, you just leave it. 5 over 8 x. And then the 24 over 8, you can reduce that to 3. So we have reduced, and that means we're done. So our answer is 5/8 x plus 3. Okay. Next problem I have is to determine the x and y intercepts of the equation and sketch a graph on the coordinate plane I have right here. So first let's start by finding the x-intercept. So to find an x-intercept, you make y equal 0. So that means replace every y with a 0. So the x would stay the same, but then instead of a y, I put a 0. Okay, now we just have to work this out. Negative 4 times 0 will cross off because it is 0, and then we just have negative x equals 4. And now since we need to get rid of the negative, this is really like a negative 1, so I can divide by negative 1, which would give us x equals negative 4. And so down here on x-intercept, since our x value is negative 4, we'd put that first. And the y value is your 0, so you put that second. So then on the graph, since it's an x-intercept, you want to put it on the x-axis. So you count over to negative 4 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. And put a dot. Okay, now we still have to find the y-intercept. And you pretty much do the same thing, except for instead of making y equal 0, you make x equal 0. So from our equation above, you'd have negative 0 minus 4y equals 4. Now since a 0 means nothing, I don't really need this guy right here. So I just have left over negative 4y equals 4. And then to get rid of that negative 4, we just divide. Y equals 4 divided by negative 4 is negative 1. So when we're putting this in our coordinates, since the x value is 0, you start with 0, and the y value is negative 1. Then you just have to graph it. So since it's a y-intercept, we want to put it on the y-axis on negative 1. Then you just draw your line. You can draw it straighter than mine. There we go. Alright, next problem. What is the slope of the line that passes through the points 2, 4, and 5, 4? So anytime you're given 2 points, that's when you know you need to use the slope formula. So as I've shown you in class, it's important that you should go through and label your points. x1, y1, x2, y2. That way it's really easy for you to plug it in. So now I just go back over here to my formula and I'm going to plug in the numbers that I have. Okay, so for y2 we have a 4. And then it's minus y1, and our y1 value is also 4. And then on the bottom, we start with x2, which in this case is 5, minus, and then our x1 value is 2. Now we just have to simplify this. So we do 4 minus 4, which is 0, and 5 minus 2 gives you 3. And then if you have a 0 in the numerator, you know your answer is always 0. So our slope in this case is 0. Now one thing you always need to remember, if it's in the numerator, meaning it's at the top of the fraction, you get a 0. But if I were to get an answer like 3 over 0, that's not 0. This is whenever you'd say, my slope is undefined. So that's another important thing you need to remember for your test. Okay, next. This says, in the equation 3.5x plus 0.4y equals 9, what's the value of x when y equals 5? So they told us the y value that we have. So that means I need to replace my y with 5. So I have 3.5x, because we still don't know what x is, plus 0.4. And since we know y is 5, I'm going to put a 5 there. Equals 9. Okay, so now I can multiply this 0.4 times 5. And that would give me 2. So I have 3.5x plus 2 equals 9. Now I can just solve it like a regular equation. So I want to get x by itself, so I'm trying to get this guy by itself, so I need to move the plus 2. So that's when you do the opposite, which is minus 2 on both sides. These would cross off, and I could just bring down the 3.5x. And then 9 minus 2 gives you 7. And then our last step, we just want to get this x by itself. So since it's 3.5 times x, and I would need to divide by 3.5. So 7 divided by 3.5, that would give you 2. So then we're supposed to record it in the griddable over here. So the griddable, you can put your numbers anywhere you want. You could put them in the middle, you could put 2 right here, maybe, and fill in the bubble. Or if you wanted to, you could put the 2 all the way over here to the side and fill in the bubble. As long as you fill in the bubble, you're fine. Alright. Next one, it says if y equals f of x and f of 6 equals 14 and f of 9 equals 30, then what is y when x is 9? This is the kind of problem, it sounds really confusing, but it's really easy. We just need to make a table. So this is f of x, and they tell you f of x is the same thing as y. So that's f of x equals y. So in this problem, since the 6 is inside the parentheses, we know that's our x value. And then it's equal to 14, so that's our y value. And then on the second one, same thing. Since the 9's in the parentheses, that's our x value. And it's equal to 30, so that's the y value. So now the question asks, what is y when x is 9? So if you look at your table, where an x is 9, what does it go with? And it goes with 30. This says find the slope and the x-intercept of the equation below. Except for I changed it to y-intercept, so let's make it y. So our y-intercept is always on the y-axis. So if I look on the y-axis where the line crosses it, this one crosses it at 5. But remember, when you do a y-intercept, you always have to make it a coordinate. And since we know a y-intercept of 5, this is a y value, so I need the 5 in the y part of the coordinate. And then our x value would just be 0. And then for slope, the easiest thing to do is use your x and y intercepts, and you draw your triangle. So in this case it goes down, so that makes it a negative slope, we know that much. So it's going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that's a negative 5. And it goes to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. So slope is rise over run. So it rises negative 5 because that's up and down, and it runs 4. So that's our slope, negative 5 over 4. Okay, this one says write the equation of a line that has a slope of 4 and a y-intercept of negative 2. So since we know the slope is m and the y-intercept is b, the equation that we're following is y equals mx plus b. And we just have to fill in the two things we know. We know m is 4, so I'm going to put 4x, and we know the b value is negative 2. So even though it says plus, since it's a negative, I'm just going to put a minus 2. You could put plus negative 2, but that's just extra stuff that you don't really need. Okay, number 11, determine the slope and the y-intercept of the equation and graph it on the grid below. So just like on the one above it, slope is your m value and y-intercept is your b value. And this one's already in the right form, y equals mx plus b. So my m value on this one it lines up right here, is negative 2. And the b value lines up right here, and it's 7. So then we have to graph it. And you just need to remember that you always start with b. You start with your y-intercept. Very important. So since our y-intercept is 7, that means on the y-axis, which is this one, you would need to count up to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and put a dot. Now we can deal with the slope. So since it's negative 2, you need to make it a fraction, so since it's a whole number, you just put it over 1. So a negative 2 means you have to go down 2, and then the bottom number is always how many you go to the right. So you start at 7, and then you go down 2 and to the right 1. Down 2, right 1. Just keep going all the way till you can't go anymore. And you could also go the other direction. This one we can only go 1 to the other direction. And then you have a nice line that you just draw right through it. Alright. Last one. Mary and Kevin are trying to determine the y-intercept of the equation. Mary thinks it's 3 and Kevin thinks it's 3/4. So on this one you have to solve for y. So in this case I'd have to add 12x. That would give me 4y equals 12x plus 3. And then the last step is divide by 4. So we have y equals 3x plus 3/4. So now we have 3/4. Now we just have to figure out the y-intercept, which is our b value. So in this case, Kevin is right because he said it was 3/4. And your answer would be because you have to solve for y first. And that is all I have for you.